All right. Good evening. My name is Nikki Winslow. I'm the district director here for the Altadena Library District. We like to start off all of our programs here at the library with our land acknowledgement statement. So we'll do that first. The Altadena Library District acknowledges its presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. Altadena is located on the stolen homelands of the Hahamanga tribal band. The traditional territory of the Gabrielino Tongva is referred to as Tabongar, which includes the areas currently known as Los Angeles County, Riverside County, West San Bernardino County, parts of Orange County, as well as the 4 southern Channel Islands. Entities such as the U.S. government and non-native settlers have subjected the Gabrielino Tongva peoples to historic and continuing injustices, including genocide, forced displacement, and cultural and linguistic erasure. Altadena Library commits to learning, educating, and informing its staff and residents of present-day Altadena about the rich histories, vibrant communities, and culture of the Gabrielino Tongva people, present and past, through our collection development, resources, and program offerings. All right, so I wanted to welcome everyone to our, not the launch, but our first program of this series of programs of our Poets Laureate for 2023-2024. So thank you so much for coming. It's really inspiring to me that every program that our library offers, whether it's art-related, reading, literacy, children's, we always have such a passionate, dedicated group of people that show up. So thank you so much for being here tonight. We're also really blessed to have our 2 poets, both Peter Harris, who's joining us from afar, and yay, as well as Carla Samuth, as our 2 Poets Laureate. Last year, they offered a very robust slate of programs as well. This year, even more to come. It's been really great working with both of them. And thank you, Carla and Peter, for bringing so much rich programming related to poetry, as well as many other forms of art to our libraries. So I just wanted to thank you. And again, welcome everyone, and introduce Carla to come up and introduce other things. So thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you to the library, the Friends of the Library Foundation, poets, writers, different sponsors. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm so glad you're all here. And I want to tell you what else we have coming up after this so that you can show up for that as well. We have a program that's part of a fellowship that we have from the Academy of American Poets called Ode to the Land, where we bring together seniors 55 and up and high school students for Saturday poetry workshops. And the workshops are featuring guest poets who are experienced in presenting the ode, as well as other lyric and narrative forms of poetry, talking about identity, family, place. And we really hope that you can show up for that. And if you have a high school student you want to bring along, that's great too. So please spread the word, because the first workshop is on September 30th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Writing the Heritage Poem with Shonda Buchanan, who is an amazing poet and the author of the memoir Black Indian. And we have flyers for you to get more information about the upcoming workshops. We have a number of workshops coming up throughout the year. So we hope to see you again soon. I also wanted to introduce, have Peter say a couple words. Peter J. Harris, my co-poet laureate. So turn it over to Peter.
You're on mute, Peter.
So sorry. Good evening, everybody. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you. But I'm excited to join you via Zoom and to be a supporter of all the hard work that Carla that Sakai put in. And these workshops are going to be fabulous. So my plan is to learn just as much as I can. And as we move through the workshop tonight and onwards, if there's something that pops for me, I will speak up later, but mainly I'll be off mic and off camera, just absorbing what the workshop leaders are doing. I'm really especially excited tonight. Mike is really an embodiment of something that's super dear to me as a longtime poet in LA, and that's community and the sense of place and the kind of sort of rip-roaring curiosity about the place. I mean, this guy does everything from give tours to, welcome first-year students at Woodbury. And of course, he studied with masters like Mike Davis and others. So I just want to say thank you, Mike, for joining us. I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with us. I'm over here taking notes. I got my pen and I got my paper. I'm old school. So thank you again, guys. I'll see you throughout the season on Zoom. And I'm sure to learn something tonight, as I know you will. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm just gonna read a brief bio of Mike. Soxon, AKA Mike the Poet, is a third-generation Southern Californian poet, professor, journalist, historian, and tour guide. His book, Letters to My City, was published by Writ Large Press. He's been giving Los Angeles City tours for 25 years. He's written for poets and writers, Metropolis, KCET, Alta, Wax Poetics, PBS, LA Taco, LA Review of Books, Elias, Boom, and the Academy of American Poets. His poetry has been featured on public radio stations KCRW, KPCC, and KPFK and Spectrum News. Soxon studied with Mike Davis, as Peter mentioned, at UCLA in 1997, and he's the coordinator of the first-year experience program at Woodbury University. And he's been awarded by the LA Press Club. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, it's so nice to see everybody. How's everybody feeling today? Hey, it's a real honor to be here, and I have to give utmost respect and love to Peter J. Harris. Has been a major inspiration to me. I've talked to Peter a lot about fatherhood, about poetry, and just about connecting with people. And we talked a lot about generational conversations, and so more to say about all of that. But it's so great to see you when arts and crafts flourish near Royal Seco. Poets and artists like Charles Fletcher Long settled in the lush landscape of wooded oaks. Most of the time, the drive grew slow. Everything changed when the freeway was built. The concrete cover flowing water below. Arts and crafts flourished in the Royal Seco. Most of the time, the drive grew slow. It's a little short, a little something, but I love Altadena. I love obviously the San Gabriel Mountains. Here we are right next to Mount Wilson, just below Mount Wilson, a mile up here. So tonight's workshop, Poetics of Location, is really going to center along this idea called geographic literacy. And it's an idea that is really being extolled by this geographer and artist, a guy who I've never seen mix science and art so well. His name is Owen Kaufman. He's published 4 books on Heyday Press. And he always talks about geographic literacy, but it's very interesting because it's very parallel to Gary Snyder's bioregionalism, and some of you might know about Wendell Berry too, and it's sort of this eco-poetry, but this is the idea that if you love Altadena, you're going to protect Altadena. If you love the redwood trees, you're going to protect the redwood trees. Have you ever noticed, by the way, that there's scattered redwoods around Pasadena and San Marino? And I think people planted them 100, 120 years ago, because as you all know, they're not native to Southern California. But there are scattered redwood trees around. If you really look closely, there's even a couple in Monterey Park, right by Marquette High School. There's one in front of Marquette High School, where my daughter goes to drop them off. Anyway, tonight's workshop is called Poetics of Location. So nice to see you guys. I'm just starting just some slides right now. But we're going to be just talking about the idea of writing about Wendell Berry had this quote, if you don't know where you are, you don't know who you are. Now, I know not everybody is going to be a geographic expert, but in this age of GPS, nobody knows geography anymore. And when I was growing up as a kid, I number one, I'm a natural born history and geography buff anyway, but my grandfather and dad would always talk to me about, you gotta know the streets. My dad would say, before the 91 freeway, it was Artesia Boulevard. Before you had the 405, it was Sepulveda. Before you had the 105, it was Imperial Highway. Before you had the 110, it was Figueroa. And so this is, before you had Interstate 5, it was San Fernando Road. And so I think geographic literacy is a baseline idea. And Obi Kaufman says he calls it the baseline idea for sustainability. Everybody's talking about sustainability. We all know climate change is real, and we know we have these environmental issues. But he was saying, let's get into people through the heart rather than scare everybody with environmental facts and figures. And we do know those facts and figures are correct about the rising temperatures. But his idea is, and this is very much in line with Peter J. Harris, and for that matter, Ross Gay, who's he's a great guy, and everybody, my buddy Doug Brown's actually good friends with Ross Gay, but they're talking about this idea of let's get into joy, but let's also get into the joy of like, let's appreciate Mount Wilson. How about Mount Baldy? How about Mount San Antonio up there where the big is in Lake Arrowhead? And so tonight's workshop is going to be about that. I just want to give you the intro. I'm going to start getting into the slides now too. I always like to have kind of an opening meditation, that we call it a recitation. But when you leave a beautiful place, you carry it with you wherever you go. Keyword tonight, geographic literacy. And I just said it already, but I want to show you a direct quote from Obi Kaufman because he says it really well. Geographic literacy, Obi Kaufman writes, involves a basic knowledge of one's place, its systems of ecology, its historic narrative, and its political trajectory. Geographic literacy is the baseline for any plan of collective sustainability. And so your geographic literacy might be just knowing that Marengo turns into Atlantic, or Van Ness, Wilton becomes Arlington, which becomes Van Ness, or Manchester becomes Firestone. This is kind of trivia, sort of in esoteric inside baseball, but geographic literacy, and we're going to get into that. And, by the way, here's Obi Kaufman's books: California Field Atlas, A State of Water, the Forests of California, and the Coasts of California. He actually got a new one coming out called The Desert of California. So here's the thing about Obi Kaufman that's really amazing. He brags that in the summertime, he spends more nights outdoors than he does indoors. So when Obi Kaufman is drawing Mount Shasta, he's camping out in front of Mount Shasta. And when he's drawing, Mount San Gregorio, he's hanging out in front of Mount San Gregorio and drawing it. And so I'm a big fan of his work, and I've done some stuff with him. But it's funny, I was already doing all this tour guiding this stuff way before I ever learned about his work. But when his work came out, it kind of crystallized a lot of ideas that I've been thinking about. And so I'm always, saluting him because he says it really well. And I like his mix of art and science. You need both. I've never seen a guy who mixes art and science. So his books have these hand-painted maps. So he has his first book, The California Field Atlas, is a 500-page book, 300 hand-painted maps of the American River and all the different, the different lakes and forests. But it's a great segue into poetry. Oh, this is something. Why does geography matter? There's actually proof that the lack of comprehension of geography creates flawed policymaking. And there's actually tangible proof of this. There's a great book called Why Geography Matters. So I went to grad school for English and history. I almost went for geography and I almost went for urban planning, but I just read all this stuff more on that autodidact tip, but I'm always reading about geography. So geographic illiteracy actually poses a threat to national security. I'm going to give you some proof. You guys remember Ronald Reagan? So Ronald Reagan was at a conference, an international conference. And he was in Brasilia, and he told everybody, "I'm so happy to be in Bolivia." What's in the front of Brasilia? Brazil. So there's some proof to you about a lack of geographic understanding, lack of geographic knowledge. So I know we kind of take it for granted or whatever, but geography to me is really important. So that's going to be a core idea of what we're writing about tonight. All of this right now is just to kind of introduce this, but so you know what, right off the bat for fun, I'm going to have you all draw. Oh, actually, no, before we do that.
Oh.
Guys, just really fast before I'm going to have you actually draw your own maps. Yeah. You're going to draw, before you write 2 poems, you're going to draw a quick little map. But before you draw your map, you know what? We're going to do some local geographic literacy. Pardon me if you already know all this. Did you guys, you probably already know this, but did you guys know that this library is actually a mid-century modern masterpiece? This library, nestled in a lush green landscape of tall deodar cedars, tropical species, and native plants, the low-lying Altadena Public Library seems to open on all sides into its habitat. It was designed by the Altadena architect Boy Georgi in a mid-century modern style that worked in close harmony with the landscape design by Erickson, Peters, and Thomas. 1950s, mid-century modern. After the Second World War, modernism really came to rise as far as architecture, and it was a lot of clean lines and geometry. But this library itself, it was a model of this sort of harmony of man and nature. The interior is planned around a central reading area with a sunken floor, a vaulted skylight, and more plants, including a mature palm tree, further blurring separation between indoor and outdoors. To complete the union of garden and structure, clerestory windows run the full perimeter of the building, pulling sunshine indoors and lending the central reading area the softly dappled light of a forest at midday. So, you know, what a beautiful library, right? Hey, this is LA Conservancy. Yeah, I didn't write it, but I'm a fan of them, and I used to do sometimes stuff with them. But I just wanted to talk about what a wonderful library we're in. And sometimes we take these things for granted. I mean, I know I do sometimes, but here we are. And this awesome library is a mid-century modern, iconic building, iconic example of mid-century modern architecture. And so I'll tell you guys, any of you know who Millard Sheets is? Millard, you know what that's, yeah. Well, let's just call them Sheets for a moment then right now. So Millard Sheets, of course, designed those home savings and loan banks, but also was a fantastic watercolor painter. And Millard Sheets did 3 mosaic murals at my daughter's high school that are of California that have all this sort of iconic California, but he did them in the late 1930s. But he also designed over 40 home savings and loans, and most of the beautiful home savings that are mostly now all Chase banks, but they're still have these beautiful murals out in front of them. But I discovered he had these 3 lesser known pieces at my daughter's high school, same place where I saw Redwood Tree. One other interesting story. I'm very good friends with one of the most influential LA Chicano muralists. His name is Paul Boteo. Paul Boteo is a wonderful guy, really nice guy. And his older brothers were part of the East Los Streetscapers, who started around the same time as Judy Baca, crazy influential muralist that did a lot of great murals in LA in the 70s. But there was a guy named Robert Arenavar, who was lesser, this is going to lead into the poetry, but Robert Arenavar was a lesser known muralist. But he worked for the Goes Studios, which was the first Chicano art gallery. It was on East First Street in East Los Angeles. And Robert Arenavar had originally been a factory worker. But he was such a good artist. He died at 53 years old in 1985. But the last 15 years of his life, he was actually the house artist for Goes Studios. And Paul Boteo would always tell me, there's a Robert Arenavar mural. And Robert Renovar did these really cool murals, but he's not as well known as Willie Hederon. He's not as well known as Judy Bach. He's not as well known as these other famous muralists. But so I was at my daughter's high school the other day, and I'm walking through the hallway back to school night, and I look in the corner and I see this mural. And I go look in the corner and it said Robert Renovar. And I called up Paul and I said, "Did you know Robert Renovar had a mural at Mark Keppel High School?" He said, "I never knew that. It was painted in 1975. But one of the themes I want to talk about is that history is in our backyard. We walk past amazing things all the time and we don't always know it. And so that's another kind of big theme of this workshop of what we're doing is that, you know, oftentimes these incredible things have happened 100 feet away from your house, you know, and so Mark Keppel High School has a Robert Renovar mural in the large sheets and the streamlined modern Art Deco auditorium. And the auditorium is dynamite. And the kids just think it's an old building, but it's this really slick. So I really believe in this idea of celebrating where you are and what you are and what you see. So I'm going to dive in a little further, but this library was a starting point of just a beautiful building. Slideshow? Yeah. Got it. Of course. Hey, what street are we on? Christmas Tree Lane, right? Man. So Christmas Tree Lane, right? How cool is that, right? Christmas Tree Lane, a 0.7-mile boulevard of deodar cedar trees in Altadena, California. The trees on the lane, Santa Rosa Avenue, have been lit since the 1920s. Some have even said it's the oldest large-scale outdoor Christmas display in the world. So here we are on this beautiful. I used to bring my in-laws down here, and some of my other introduction to Altadena was I was speaking earlier with Carl about Jerby Turvalon, who's a really cool poet that lives around here, or she's a librarian, as I was speaking with them about it. But anyway, so this is a wonderful library, and you already all I know that I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's just something to just reflect on and appreciate, you know. So, all right, now what we're going to do, I have seen how I work with a lot of first-year college students, and when I have them write about a restaurant that you used to go to with your family, write about a place that's sacred in your life, that it helps people locate themselves in the world. They say a lot of people are having identity crises in this day and time, and people don't know who they are, they don't know themselves, they don't know their history. So I say, let's start with our local history and our local geography, right where you are right now. And even thinking about, for example, every time I went to San Pedro, my grandfather would tell me that he proposed to my grandmother at Point Fermin in 1941, just before the war. You know, like my mom was actually born 5 days before Pearl Harbor. And, you know, my grandfather proposed to my grandmother there in early 41. And so I'm sure each of you have your own hundreds and hundreds of different memories, but as I drive around different neighborhoods and different places, I think about these memories, and they're great places. There's a great place to start at home. So what I'm going to have you do to start off, this is just, it's low pressure, but draw a map either of your Altadena or your LA, or whatever you want to put on that, and spend just a few minutes. Don't worry about it being perfect. This is just having fun. It be kind of whimsical with it, but right in that circle. Yeah, man. Yeah. And we're going to get to some poems in a minute, but this is a little warm up. This is a little warm up exercise. Don't even overthink it. Just have fun with it. Then I'm going to walk around and talk to you. Thanks for joining me, guys. I love going out. It's fun. You know. Yes. Super interactive as we go on. I would like to have some of you just come up and speak and share your part too. So if anybody feels like at any point, interrupt me. It's more fun that way. Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, my wife did that. Nice kids, huh?
Yeah.
A few more minutes. And I'm a really participation-based guy on that Paulo Freire side of things. So like at some point, if people want to even come up and share theirs, I would love to see you come up and explain it a little bit too. In a couple more minutes, maybe 3-4 more minutes. But I want to see you. Yeah, they're creeping in on the urban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get
Park is a little more.
a lot of.
Yeah, you're gonna be bears coming down, huh? Wow. Bobcats. The mountain lions a little bit too.
No, for answer.
Wow. In a couple of minutes, I'd love to have a couple of you come up here and talk about your map. How's it coming to this table? Creating this accidentally a few years ago and found out. Hey, you know what? I want to hear a few of you come up and speak about yours. Who wants to be first? Come on, what's your name?
Flannery.
Hey, folks, Flannery's coming.
Okay, here's my bride. I live on a street in Mid-City and it has a really nice, this is my house right here. We live on this side and my neighbors live here. And we have a beautiful view of downtown. You just walk to this intersection. It was also where we watch fireworks because we're lazy. So we just walk to this intersection. And this is supposed to be a bush, but it ended up as big as a house. But yes. But yeah, it's really nice. And our neighbors, this is like a care home that is next door. So there's lots of different folks who live there. And yeah, it's just a very kind of stacked neighborhood where like sometimes there'll be a lot and then next to it there's like 3 houses on the same amount of space. So it's just very vibrant and nice and we really love it.
I appreciate exercise. I'd love to have as many people come up as possible. Who wants to come up next? Bonnie, right? Come on up, Bonnie, come on up.
Thanks, Mike. This is, I moved here 7 years ago. I live in Altadena, just on the other side of the lake, and it's a bungalow court. It's arts and crafts style. And that's my little side of the duplex. So right there.
Yeah.
And basically it's like 2 standalone cottages and then 3 duplexes. So it's like a little community around the lawn. You've probably seen some of these in Pasadena and in Los Angeles, and we're turning 100 next year. During the pandemic, we watched outdoor movies together. I still have to change fuses in the fuse box that I get at Ace Hardware. Keep some spare ones. And I call it Crescent Moon Court because it has little lavender shutters with crescent moons and like shaped roofs, red roofs on the little cottages. And it's pretty charming. And it's also hell because it's old. I'm going to be honest. But I love it. Thank you.
So it's so funny because I love Craftsman. But my wife dislikes it for the very same reason that Bonnie mentioned about how old it is. And you know, the Craftsman era was almost the tail end of the handcrafted era. After the Craftsman ended, you know, when the Second World War came, they had to build hundreds and hundreds of airplanes, thousands of airplanes. And that's when everything just, that's when freeways slowly got built. Then we started having McDonald's and corporate culture. And so if you look at architecture after about 1945 or even 50, everything nowadays just has plaster, chicken wire, and stucco, throw a McDonald's sign and they're done with it. You know what I mean? Maybe Starbucks sign on it. So like the craftsman is those details of the crescent moon and the beautiful closet with the handle and the little cupboard, you know what I mean? And that the buildings, you don't have that anymore, you know, and it was gone. I mean, there was still a little bit in the 30s, and Art Deco was kind of a transition between that and modernism, but the craftsman era, I really love it too. I would love to buy a craftsman home. And have you ever heard about the old craftsman homes getting stuccoed over? That's been a big controversy.
That would be no.
And sometimes the people stucco them because it will last longer, you know, but then the wood is so expensive to upkeep. I'm a sentimental guy. I like the craftsman person. But, you know, my wife and I have joked around about this. She's like, you know, she wants to build something brand new and modern with the new fuses. You know, so anyway, hey, who's coming up next? What's your name? Come on, Susan.
So I can't draw, so I used a lot of signage. But I started with my house. I live near New York and Allen. And the first thing I tried to draw was the big oak tree, and you know, we have so many of those in Altadena and state too. And I ended up realizing, you know, all the houses of some close friends, you know, are not that far away in the neighborhood. So I put all their houses in and put in the Eden Canyon, the different entrances, and then the waterfall entrance, and the road up to Henniger Flats, and the those places, and the library, the Garmin Market. I did not put the new pizza place. I put the old patty cakes, because that's what I love. And tried to put in some of the fruit trees and our chicken coop, and of course the mountains and the towers on top of those mountains.
Right.
The towers. Yeah. So I know it was oak trees and people and.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you. When do you want to go? What's your name?
Hazel.
Hazel, come on, Hazel. Yeah. Come on, Hazel.
So hospitality.
Because I really appreciate you and I love your shirt too. The colors.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I had fun with this exercise. And so this is my picture. And I live in the Altadena area as well. And I've lived here for a long, long time. So I've gotten to know it. And as I pointed out to Mike, it's my hood. So I do a lot of walking. And I learned a lot more by walking the neighborhood than I do by driving. So if I can get this right, at the bottom here is Woodbury Road. And that's the road that I take in order to come up to Santa Rosa, which is Christmas Tree Lane. And when I first moved here, I did some research on the neighborhood. And I learned that Woodbury Road was named after Frederick and John Woodbury, who the Christmas Tree Lane was the driveway to their home. So they ordered the trees, the deodar trees, to be planted along Christmas Tree Lane. And that was like back in the 1880s. Yes. So I drew in Woodbury Road and Santa Rosa with all the deodar trees. And then there, of course, there's Lake. And I put in the post office, which is like one of the places that I go to when I'm out walking. And then to the, I guess that would be west. There's JPL that's off of Lincoln Avenue. And then the San Gabriel Mountains that are at the top. And of course, there's John Muir High School. I didn't go there, but I lived right around the corner from there.
So this is all to say that I just love this neighborhood and I love there's so many animals. We've got bobcat, we've got bear. I haven't seen one, but I hear about them on the news. And I've seen what is it? Possum and just all kinds of skunks, which you smell them before you see them.
Yes.
So anyway, that's my little prediction.
Thank you. And that was beautiful. I love everybody's stories and maps. This is my favorite. I just love hearing everybody's. One or two more people before we move on? Yeah, come on, what's your name? Sue, come on.
Okay, so your story inspired me to come up. This is my map, and I love maps. So I drew it as a map. And it turns out that I have 3 houses on this map where I've lived. 2 of them in Altadena, and 1 of them in Pasadena. And I live now on Craig Avenue, which is between Midlothian and the Presidents. And I used to live in the Craig Adobe, which is the oldest structure in Pasadena.
Wow.
You would love it. It had 12 doors,
Wow.
and the floorboards were 150 years old, like big fat old pieces of wood. But when we first moved here, we lived on the Rada place, and I put on here the hardware store. That's probably kind of my go-to place. When we first moved to California, and our first Santa Ana season in our house, we had a little baby. I watched the whole roof of my house just blow off neighbor's yard, and I went to the Altadena hardware store to say, who should I call? What should help me? And they did. They were wonderful, and they still are.
Wow.
I still go there like twice a week. It's embarrassing, but it's an old house. That's what you have to do. But I have the talking about Christmas Tree Lane and the Bailey Mansion and Farnsworth Park with Little League and the waterfall hikes. And of course, coming here, we would come to the library with my kids. Every 2 weeks, we get out the maximum number of books and come back with them, almost always, all of them. But anyway, and then I think the one thing I might write about is Boulder Lane. When we first got to town, so this is 35 years ago. And like I said, I had a little baby, and there was a New Yorker article about Boulder Lane and why it was named Boulder Lane, and because it's full of rocks that can come down from the mountain.
Was it John?
Yes, I think so. That rings a bell. It's a fabulous story about, and it's all about the,
The debris, right? The mud flow.
yeah, and how when there's a fire, it kind of seals in this weird way. It seals the soil so the water can't really penetrate, and so that's why it all just comes downhill. And I freaked out. I thought, what have we done? So I drove up there, or walked up there to Boulder Lane to see, sure enough, yeah, there's thousands of boulders on the sides of the street. And we haven't had that. I do remember the Altadena fire and watching from a friend's second floor, just watching the fire. It seemed like it was so close because it traveled super fast across the mountains. I went home and I told my kids, pick one thing. We might have to go really soon. Anyway.
Thank you. Man, I thought about that before, like, what do you even grab? That's. Hey, so thank you. You know, one more person on move for next exercise? Anybody else? Come on, what you doing, bro? Ben, let's go, bro.
It's straight up. Hey everyone, my name is Ben. I actually moved here just a month ago. Yeah, Philadelphia's great. But I live right up the street at like Fair Oaks and Pine. So I do all the streets that I'm in. And I guess you all know the streets to get here. But today I only have a bicycle, so I rode my bicycle out. Mount Wilson. Mount Wilson. Like halfway today, when I was looking out in the valley, and I saw some birds, murderous birds. Upwards. So I do that, and I also heard there was a coyote. Intersection of Pine with Fair Oaks, so I do that too. And yeah, what else? The little cat who lives next door. I do that too. All right, that's all. Yeah, thank you.
You guys aren't gonna believe it. Ben just made me say this, but reminded me of it. The cat attacked my dog yesterday. A little small cat, or not so small, but I was walking the dog on the street I always walk on. And I guess this cat had just had kids, but out of the blue, it just came and just pounced on my dog. And my dog is corgi. And it was a pretty scary little moment, made my dog bleed. And, but I got my dog and we went away. But this actually really did happen yesterday. I wouldn't have said it if you hadn't mentioned the cat, but it was just one. Life is filled with crazy surprises. You just never know what's going to happen next, right? And I never anticipated to see a dog. I mean, the cat attacked my dog. It happened. Hey, I loved your maps. We're going to keep moving. And we're going to write haiku. We're just going to write 3 quick haiku. I'm sure everybody already knows the haiku, but here's a really the simplest formula I've ever seen for haiku. Now, we're going to be more of an informal haiku today, just because we're doing them quickly. But line 1, the subject. Line 2, more detail. Line 3, summarize the summarized conclusion. So 575, but I don't work for the syllable police anymore. So if you got to cheat, sometimes you can use one line. You don't have to. It doesn't. You can break the rule a little bit if you want to. But we're gonna write 3 haiku real quick, and I got 2 quick fun ones. I write 5 haiku every day, but I also give myself permission for them to suck. You know what I mean? But my idea, I've been doing it for the last 7 years. The idea is if I write 5 haiku a day, it's about 1,700 at the end of each year. So even if half of them suck, it's okay. It's just a repetition exercise. But here's a quick haiku. Here's some little thoughts. This is just a cool little blog post I saw recently. But a haiku, everybody knows 575. But haikus in Japanese culture, of course, they would always contain a season word, such as dandelion or snowflake. The season word anchors the haiku in our common experience of nature. And every good haiku contains a distinctive turn of thought, also called a twist or a pivot, that gives the 17 syllables more than just 17 syllables of meaning. And in Japanese haiku, the turn of thought is often producing haiku humor. So the humor can be varied. It can be bittersweet, funny, philosophical, or even dark. But I like haiku, especially just because like I'm always driving my kids around. Like actually the end of tonight, my daughter's on swim team and I'll be picking her up at 9 o'clock on my way home tonight, you know? So like I write some haiku when I'm waiting to pick up my daughter. I write some haiku when I'm at the dentist. So, you know, when I was younger, I could stay up all night and write a million poems. Now I just got to sneak in some haiku whenever I can. So here's a quick little haiku. Wet stormy Monday, washing away my troubles, cleaning up my life. That was one last year. Remember how much it rained last year? So that was a little haiku. And then here's Big Sur. I love Big Sur, you guys. Bixby Creek Bridge. And so Highway 1, 71 miles from south to north. And I'm sure you've all heard about that. Every year, some knucklehead drives a Porsche off the cliff. You ever hear about these guys spinning around there thinking that you can take it like it's Formula 1, but Yeah, you guys don't read it. So here's my quick little haiku about Big Sur. Big Sur's Bixby Bridge stretches over the ocean. You better slow down. So for you guys, I was just gonna say, write 3 haiku right now. Just real quick, little exercise, 3 haiku. It could be about your map. It could be about what you've already done, but write 3 haiku. And then we're gonna get into the place poem after this. I hope to have everybody come up with this. It's never any pressure, but it's always been a hope to get everybody up as much as possible. You want to break the ice in a haiku? What's your name?
Leona,
Leon, come on, Leon.
how many should I read?
Hey, you can read all three because they're short.
I actually just moved here a year ago, so I also feel very fresh in the city. I'm in Studio City. Moore Park Street mirror from the road. Is it haunted? I don't think so. I got a new mirror from my bedroom yesterday. And I don't think it is. Big spiders come out. I wave arms to shield from webs. They build at 7.
And you know, Moore Park is a cool street. And you know what? Studio City is a cool neighborhood. It's an interesting, like it's kind of urban, but it's also like suburban and nice right up against the hill. Like, yeah. I've been teaching in Burbank over the last 7 or 8 years, and I've slowly grown to love Burbank in spite of all the Johnny Carson jokes he used to say back in the day. I've slowly, like, Burbank is a cool little neighborhood, but like Magnolia Street, and there's all the valley has a lot of cool streets, and it gets overlooked, and everybody used to make jokes about it. But it's funny, I got a lot of family. I had some family in the valley, but I had even more family. Half my family was in LA, and half my family was in Orange County, and so I no longer draw lines of divisions. I'm like, to me, from San Diego to Santa Barbara, it's all Southern California. And I'm not trying to put any fences or, like, let's celebrate it all, and it's all beautiful. So, but anyway, but I love the pieces. Yeah. What's your name?
David.
Hey, come on, David.
A late summer's date, eager to pay for our food, my card was declined. Exquisite objects displayed on rickety stands, you'll soon need strong glue.
David, thank you. What's your name?
Artemis.
Artemis? Come on, Artemis. Thank you.
Purple sand beaches, quietly kept a secret, pressed against the one. Humid history in the HBCU stacks, waiting for sister.
I love those songs. You know what? The haiku really does it is just a beautiful form. You can see why it is one of the most used forms in the world, because the challenge of the economy of word, of trying to say so much and so little, the haiku is, you can see why they've been around 700 years. What's your name in the back? Kesa, come on.
Lunch with an old friend. We see each other rarely, fish breath in our eyes. Thinking on old lovers, what I've learned and who I've lost. I hope that one's bald.
Hey, haiku humor is real. Thank you. That last line has a punchline, right? It always hits. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Couple more people? What's your name? Come on. That's always going on.
Gray skies, the gray sky looms, expands, threatens to smother mountains of gold. Hours neatly filled, leaves no room for minutes of mystery and breath.
I'm also in studio city, so I try to do one of them like that. And I can see the minion. So the minion watches the top of the mountain freeway, rest soundly tonight.
Hey, anybody else?
I'm Jean. My first one is for a little town called Borrego Springs, which is in eastern San Diego County. So I just wrote silent Borrego, desertscape, wild sky, starlit, arrive, pray, restore. And then the other one is the question everybody asks us, Altadena, where? Pasadena's shaggy pal, side by side always.
Nice job, Gene. And you know what? Anza Borrego is a beautiful place.
Yes, yes, it is.
Man, what a kind of a nuclear, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows about Joshua Tree, but Anza Borrego isn't quite as well known.
Yeah, which is part of the fun, I think. You know. But yeah, they really have majestic sunsets. And, yeah.
You know what else is beautiful is Mount Palomar. It's a pretty big mountain there in North San Diego County, you know, and almost, you know, moving in almost towards like Temecula, Escondido and all that. But you know what? The geography of California is off the hook. I mean, it's just there's just so much great geography in Southern California, or actually just California, period. You can't even go to it all, you know, there's just so much. But well, you know what? We're gonna keep moving. And the next one is more of the longer piece. And this is the one where you all can kind of stretch out 1 to 2 pages, but so real quick, just without even thinking about it, maybe list 7 places. It could even be from your map. And I was, you know, thinking originally locally Altadena, but maybe even Southern California, or we can play with it a little bit, but maybe list 7 places around California or Southern California that are scenic, or actually for that matter, just meaningful to you. And so we're starting with a list, and then you're going to choose one from the list. But I have a million of my own, but like this is my buddy Alan Aquino, who's a fantastic poet and professor at Cal State Northridge. He wrote about the cemetery where his grandmother was buried. I'm gonna read that in a minute. But look, how about Joshua Tree, Mount Shasta, Crystal Cove State Park between Newport and Laguna, Sequoias. Yeah, I chose some of the greatest hits. California poppies, right? The Watts Towers. I think Simon Roger built those over 30 years. So there's just a few different places, but we're going to start with a list, and then you're going to choose one. So write a quick list, and then you're going to choose one to write about. And Ben, it can even be filled in. I mean, we can cheat a little bit. You can, yeah. I'm not so strict about things. You know, we can bend it a little bit. after we do the list, to choose one of the 7 places you listed and write or draw at least a page about it using the 5 senses. Use imagery, memory, the sounds, the scent, extrasensory details to make it come alive. And really fast, this was my buddy Alan's piece. And I just like this piece so much. San Fernando Mission Cemetery 2022. Hazy valley morning, the sun peeks through the fog. Dew glistens on the large grassy islands and the flowers below their epitaphs. Past the Bob Hope Mausoleum, a stone's throw from Richie Valens' resting place, I lay roses fresh and cool, red for my mother, white for my Lola. With folded hands, I offer prayers of thanks, breathing in the fragrance of the new day. So my buddy Alan Aquino wrote about where his mom and his grandmother are buried, the San Fernando Mission Cemetery. But this is the place poem exercise, and there's a little freedom with it, but write about a place that's especially sacred to you. And you could do a different way, different every day. You know what I mean? Sometimes I've written about San Pedro, as I told you, Point Fermin, where my grandfather and I used to go, but also my daughter and I always go to this park called the Cascades in Monterey Park, and it's just really beautiful. I wrote about it in my book. It's this park with this long waterfall kind of fountain, and so there's so many different places. So choose a place that's been really meaningful to you and write a piece about that place. And like this is an incomplete list, but a neighborhood, a major street, a local landmark, a church, a flower, a tree, a park, a museum, a library, a restaurant. I've done this with everybody from 4th graders to high schoolers to college kids to I even used to do stuff with the North Hollywood Senior Arts Village. So this is an exercise I'm always doing with different people. Writing about a place that's been sacred to you. Yeah, a few more minutes to bring some people in. Yeah. Sometimes it's just that you need, Appreciate it. We are local history. What's become especially gratifying in recent years is encouraging students to learn local history, excavate their family stories, and to explore their personal geographies. Over the last 15 years, I've taught them at the high school inclusion level. Over the last 8, I've taught courses in interdisciplinary studies at Woodbury University in the San Fernando Valley. These classes combine literature, history, urban studies, geography, sociology, and architecture. And each semester, we take on this one field trip. Next week, we're actually going to the Great Wall of Los Angeles, Judy Bacchus Great Wall, right out the Canyon. But last week I took a bunch of students from Buckley High School to the top of City Hall. By the way, one of the best kept secrets that a lot of people don't know, you can go to the top of Los Angeles City Hall for free. It's not open on Saturday and Sunday, but Monday through Friday, you can go to the top of City Hall from 9 to 5. And it's the 27th floor observation deck. It's a killer view of the city. It's a really fun thing to do. But I take students to the Museum of Neon Art, Theodore Payne Foundation, Koreatown, Boyle Heights, Leimert Park. By the way, Burbank City Hall is kind of cool too. It's a cool little old Art Deco building, and it's got a Hugo Ballin mural in there. Burbank City Hall is underrated. It's not as fantastic as Los Angeles City Hall, but Burbank City Hall is pretty cool too. And I've even taken students to Hanson Dam. But I have students write about these field trips, and I have them write about their neighborhoods. And I've seen many students become empowered after locating themselves in the city. One of them is my student Alec Figueroa from Monterey Park. After we covered the history of Monterey Park, Alhambra, and the greater San Gabriel Valley as a groundbreaking region of Asian and Latino residents in class one day, Figueroa told me that he was half Vietnamese and half Mexican. He said that he'd never thought about his neighborhood's history or demographics, but that this thought, as he thought more about it, he's a mixed race kid who grew up in Monterey Park, and he actually exactly embodies one of the area's defining qualities. This was an epiphany for him, and his neighborhood knowledge helped Alec Figueroa feel like he belonged. One day, Figueroa even jokingly told me that he was the San Gabriel Valley. His conclusion was further cemented when we discussed the geographer and ethnic studies scholar. There's a woman named Wendy Chang who wrote a book called The Changs Next Door to the Diazes. And it was a really influential book about the San Gabriel Valley, about the Latino and Asian migrations that have happened there over the last 30 or 40 years. But we talked a little bit about that in my class. And Alec Figueroa loved it so much. He ended up titling his final portfolio in my class, speaking of himself, I am the San Gabriel Valley. He told me that prior to our conversations, he was never interested in local history or geography because he thought it did not include him. But these epiphanies are why studying local history and geography are so significant. And this great historian, James W. Loman, he's the guy who wrote Lies Across America, and kind of parallel, similar to like a Howard Zinn or Mike Davis. He has this really great quote, all history is local, it happened here. And I really like that idea because all history is local. It happened right here, just like we were talking about in the large sheets at Mark Keppel High School. So on that note, I want to bring more people up. Who wants to read first? David and Marcus.
Right, this is about the Cobb Estate. Not from around here, it's at the top of the lake. Chaparral landscape ever changing, showing all the time it won't continue. Shunning buildings and businesses and blocky gravestones, but welcoming fellow plant life from around the world. So much to so many, a home, a space to recharge and community, a place where some prank their friends. Sagebrush and eucalyptus, toyon and feijoa, a microcosm of LA's diversity. This patch of good green earth was saved from being turned into dead-old bricks by a community that cared enough to act. Can we do the same for our lives?
So I feel like I wrote a typical poem that I would normally write. but I really, really appreciate you giving us this prompt, and I do feel like later on I'm gonna write a different poem that's a little more different. I like being challenged, you know? So I meet you in the middle, the east fork of the San Gabriel River. I dream of one day drinking from your mouth, the very source of my spiritual awakening. My whole life I've been running. Shush, shush, you say. This whole time you've been running beside me. And when I was lost, scared, blinded from crying, stoned to the bone and driving, the universe let your snaking body find me. In the moonlight, your skin becomes black diamonds. I cuddled cold boulders just to hear your whispers clearer, fell asleep in sand softened, chilled to the touch. And by morning, when miners came to slice their metal tools through your innards, prop you up in stony poses like some cheap gold lame trick, I looked with crusted dawn eyes at our various reflections. Me on the surface, and you refracted and out of reach.
Hey, that was dynamite. Yeah, that was dope. You might know this already, but when LA would really flood, the San Gabriel River and the Los Angeles River would combine into one big river. The rivers were not put into concrete until after 1938. It was a flood that killed 83 people. And any of you ever read DJ Waldy? He's an interesting writer. I'm actually reading with him next week in Long Beach. He wrote a book called Holy Land about Lakewood. The dude has lived almost his whole life in Lakewood. But he remembers when the San Gabriel River was not in concrete yet. And the city of Lakewood would sometimes be a lake, literally. And there was times where the LA River and the Los Angeles River, because if you'll notice, the 605 is on the San Gabriel, and the Los Angeles River is on the 710. And so these rivers were next, the freeways were next to the rivers, or built next to, but the San Gabriel River and the Los Angeles River would combine sometimes. And but hey, that was a great poem. Yeah, I don't think there was anything typical happening. Thank you, though. Yeah. Who's next? Come on.
This is for a backyard in Sherman's. In the summer, a perfect place for pee-wee kickball, already dry, empty dust, a sand lot. Let's start a league, if you build it, I say. But in the California winter, a little bit of rain and magic. The clovers rise up in minutes, illuminating green so lush, we cannot remember the imaginary ball or bases, forget the chance of invisible crowds as we stroll barefoot, arm in arm, through this field of luck. Like maybe, just maybe, the stars came out all for us.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Bonnie? Come on, Bonnie. Bonnie's gonna be teaching a workshop. Bonnie Kaplan.
Yeah, Mike, we're gonna map, we're gonna map the places we've lived, and now I have to change my workshop, but that's okay. No, absolutely, we can never do that enough. I've been a lifelong renter. When I moved from the Bay Area back here in 2000, I was so blessed because I got a rental of a very tiny house in the backyard of a milliner, a Hollywood milliner in Coldwater Canyon. And I lived there for 10 years, and these are some short poems I wrote about it. The quality of light in Los Angeles canyons stipples from the west as the sun drops a carpet of its clothing on the green. A hawk in the plum tree beckoning to the squirrel who has eaten the walnuts. How the owl loves to bring its young, a squirrel stuffed with walnuts and plums. We were tiny house before it became popular. artisanal epicure on Alta Mesa. And then this is sort of just like a tribute to the place I lived. Renting a tiny house before they blew up on Netflix in Deborah Ambrosino's backyard. Sound of pine cones being dropped on my roof. Shadow of stag's horns growing larger on the ceiling at night. Pregnant alligator lizard joins me for dinner. Sitting on the deck at sundown, the owls join me as I fire up the laptop. I lived 10 years in Coldwater Canyon, epicenter of Los Angeles. Far from the milliner's house, Deborah constructs a hat for Austin Powers or the Mad Hatter. Anna Nicole Smith walks downhill where her limo waits. I return each day at my work with adults on parole and enter paradise.
Yeah. Man, I love the little vignettes. I love the little snapshots. That's great. Who's next? All right, Hazel.
Cheney Trail. Early spring. A year after the wedding. A new beginning. Outside our new home, the air smelled of roses and orange blossoms. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee. My cheeks wet with tears. Me pregnant with our first child, a son. My new husband, suddenly a stranger. Why were we arguing? I don't recall. Then you showed up, my guardian angel, my brother from a different mother. Let's take a ride, you said. I climbed into your beat up Volkswagen Bug, and up Fair Oaks we rode. You parked in the lot beneath the trail. Moss-covered trees welcomed us with open arms. Large boulders offered us a place to sit. The song of a babbling brook soothed my ears. At the top of the trail, we rested on a log, watched water fall into a crystal bowl. For a moment, my troubles seemed far, far away.
I love it, Hazel. Thank you. I think there is nothing better than poetry to capture not just mixed emotions, but these ranges of emotions that we get, and the mix of nostalgia and reflection. And man, yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Come on.
I just thought this was gonna be LA and it's New York, so never mind. I was like, look at this, this is the LA scene. Anyway, okay. Take the old Prius in our worn-in marriage to gaze upon for the first time California's sequoias. Escape the heat wave, serpentine the old road, launch deeper and farther, doubting your direction, but the air betrays a thick, crisp aroma. The freshest pine your palate has ever tasted. Your senses dance, your hands intertwined, reminiscing of the nights and days we walked this way together. When she appears, General Sherman, majesty and history, a time capsule of humanity, a canvas of the life we inflict on her. We pretend to extend our arms around her, but our limbs have not the length to match for years. I take your hand in mine with ease and feel your heartbeat. She will be here long after us. And then I wrote one about, I'm curious if anyone can guess what this is about. It's really quick.
Stained Converse sneakers, you click them together as crowds around drink and eat and share. Below are the departed souls, a gimmick, a morbid treat, and you were not aware. Expecting a night at the cinema, you gaze up at the smattering of stars, utterly alone in the city of angels, wondering where in the world you are.
One more? I love everybody's pieces.
They're taking me places. The chair is white, a startling contrast to the deep greens all around me. I sit on the cold marble, stroke the tendrils carved into the arms, the leaves twining the surface of the stone, tame cousins to the wild branches reaching to pull on this white interruption in the landscape. Sometimes people pass nearby, but mostly I'm alone with the deep shade, the massive oaks, the camellia understory. I saved this spot for the last leg on my walk when the cold stone is most welcome, the rest most needed. I know this is not a wilderness forest, that planting, watering, tending all happen here. But the trees insist on being seen for their grandeur as natives that own the land. The smaller camellias, sometimes showing off their pinks and whites, the pathways and low metal nameplates. That's not why I sit in this intricately carved stone chair. I'm here for the curved limbs arching overhead, the twist in a trunk, the light that filters through. When I finally get up to go home, it's with a promise that I'll return soon, the knowledge that the chair will be waiting.
Carla, do you want to do it?
No. Well, you know what, I did try to call.
Yeah, let's hear some Carla. Folks, give it up for Carla. Being really at the computer parents.
I didn't write a poem so much as a stream of consciousness.
Hmm.
From the exercise. It's just a local Pasadena park, McDonald Park. Second year birthday party for Gabriel. 30 crispy chickens from Pollo Único, where the Peruvian Chinese owners still remember my son, so big now, 27 years old. It's just a park. The day Gabe decided to learn double Dutch, whirling feet with Jacob and Caleb and stepsister Samantha. Just a park where we now take our geriatric Saint Bernard like a baby. We drive her around in the wee hours when she can't sleep and take her out to smell new delights, all that lingering old chicken bones and leftovers from fast food lane. Now, 25 years later, I miss the endless walks with my little boy, the long afternoons at the playground when I thought I had so many important things to get home to do. The basketball courts Gabe tried to play pickup with the tough-ass big boys. The battered volleyball nets where Samantha tried to teach us how to spike. Now the older folks are playing pickleball and I want to join. Probably end up a broken-limbed casualty. I close my eyes and miss the sleepy, sweet, musty head on my shoulder. His curls a souffle of tenderness. Now he texts, "Mom, do you have a picture of me when I was little with cornrows?" Instead, I sent him the kindergarten photo, twists, from the Ethiopian hair goddess, who claimed him as her countryman. Gabe at the microphone at Copy Gallery, reading his birthday guests.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Folks, Writ Large Press just published the second edition of my book, Letters to My City. And I want to share the first poem of the book. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. I'm still alive in Los Angeles, even as the price of rent rises and gridlock strain the central arteries. I'm old enough to remember disco parties in the build up to the 1984 Olympics and news reporters like Jerry Dunphy and Al Fishman. I remember when Fernando Valenzuela was a rookie. Years before I loved Wanda Coleman and Bukowski, my first LA quotes were Chick Hearn and Vince Scully, and then I read Mike Davis and Karen McWilliams and watched the gospel of Bill Hauser. Looking at things that aren't here anymore, recalling former glory like Ralph Story and still exploring from Panorama City to Pomona. I'm still alive in Los Angeles as they build high-speed trains out Crenshaw and out into the San Gabriel Valley. Changes in transportation for the new generation foreshadow the nation's transformation as millennials on bicycles call for return of the Garden City. Green in the 21st century is a matter of survival. Witness the revival of the wetlands. The riparian watershed is a sentinel for sustainability. Unbridled consumption is a liability. Observe residents of Angel City playing their part to restore nature's heart. I'm still alive in Los Angeles from festivals to funerals, baby showers to weddings. Each generation ever more beautiful, realities that are useful. Throngs of people mix and match, creating the patchwork mosaic of multicultural schools coming together to call LA home. The community is a poem in progress called Los Angeles. The angels and the cities and the synchronicity from Central to Central City. Olympic was 10th Street, and Pio Pico was the last governor of California when it belonged to Mexico. He was born a Spanish citizen. See the city's end soaring to support on a Saturday morning, circling the Evergreen Cemetery or hiking the forest in Culver City. I'm still alive in Los Angeles as mamas monitoring laundromats from Lancaster to Long Beach. I walk the long streets from Magnolia to Manchester, Rosemead to Redondo Beach. I'm still alive in Los Angeles, so there's no more open space. Most of the wetlands have been replaced by condos, Trader Joe's, and makeshift dog parks. The expanding corporate heart charts a frenzied facelift of never-ending Christmas, but only a few are on that wish list. There's a generation of kids on IG and Snapchat, and commuters want that fast track. Live in Los Angeles. I'm still alive in Los Angeles, thanks to family, friends, and all of you in poetry. The past, present, and future of my city gives me energy. Untold generations of history from Billy Mason to Chavez Ravine to Toyo Miyazaki, punctuating the power of place, turning the page, sharing authority, because we all share the story of the city unfolding. There's no hierarchy. We all belong to this city. It's all her story. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. Today I drive around LA with my son and daughter, like I once rode with my grandfather. There's no more perennials of the brown derby, but there's still phosphorus poles for leaps in the pantry. My children spill ice cream in the backseat with me. Together we are alive in a city of destiny. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. I'm still alive in Los Angeles. And you guys are really fabulous. You guys are fantastic. It's so nice to meet everybody and more jam to do. Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you.
That was amazing, and I just want to, I don't know if we can have Peter say some, we're gonna have an open call. Peter's the editor-in-chief for our upcoming anthology. And I just want to say to some of you who wrote poems, consider submitting. We're gonna have an open call coming up the beginning of October. Are we able to put Peter on for 1 second before we disperse? Way to put you on the spot.
No problem.
For Alex for helping us.
Yeah. And thank you to all of you. You were just an incredible group at this workshop. I love hearing all your work. Thank you so much.
Just stop sharing, I think.
Yeah. Oops. This is not sure.
It's that red thing.
Oh, you're right. My bad. Thank you. Yeah, Carla's got it right. We will be announcing the open call for submissions to the anthology. We will the calls the period for submissions will be October 1 through October 31. We're going to be published by Thelma's Golden Foothills Press, Thelma Rayner. So one, if you're not on the mailing list at the library, please get on it because we'll use the mailing list first to begin announcing. And then with the help of our team, we will also use social media to put some stuff out. So stay tuned, and we look forward to looking at your work. And yeah, thanks so much, y'all, for attending, and thanks, Mike, for a note-taking evening, because I sure took a lot of them over here.
Man, love you, Peter. Thank you, man.
Yeah, love you too, brother.
Give it up for Peter, please, everybody.
It's all good. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Carla. This is a great first workshop.